might help here. Do not disturb. Okay. Go back. Show the goddamn comments. Show the chat. I'm literally like I'm literally on the verge of getting like so irritated right now. And I can't even type in my own goddamn chat box on this mobile bullshit. I'm sorry, guys. So if you have to watch the VOD, if you want, to hear what I actually was trying to say, I apologize. I'm so yeah. I don't have anything else right now. Um. So yeah, thanks, Baron, for telling people to refresh and tell them like it's mobile and I'm still trying to figure it out. And so my apologies, and just if I cut out, please refresh and I'll try to be right back. So please thanks for being awesome, Baron. You're the best. Um I'm doing better than I was this past week or so. I had like a really bad, like manic, hypomanic, almost like mixed episode because if I'm self-destructive, there's got to be some level of depression in there. Um, and I think it's because of adjusting my medications, and the medication adjustment has helped me to be less just like in bed all day for months, like just barely attending to my basic needs, like not eating, like putting off going to the bathroom as long as possible, not showering, just playing mobile games in bed. Like I wasn't even able to read or write. Like even my comics, they started build like stacking up, and I just like was like, fuck, I can't deal with anything. And so I would just be between napping and then playing stupid free mobile games, and it was not good. I barely left the house. I was super isolated. The guy I was dating was a little bit of an enabler. As much as he cared and tried to be there for me, he didn't really know how to support someone with mental illness the way, the kind I had and what I really needed and stuff like that. And so we had to part ways. It was mutual, but we both realized that we weren't ready for a relationship, and we both had a lot of our own baggage and crap that we needed to attend to. Um, so I'm not. I mean, like I miss him and everything, but I'm not sad. Like really, like I feel like it was for the best. And I feel better that I'm single again, so that I don't have to worry about a relationship and worry about another person, and trying to help support them when I basically can't even take care of myself right now, and had to, move back in with my parents at, you know, 29. I'm almost 30. And so I had to admit, I'm not doing well. Like I have not been able to complete even a year of college. I've dropped out multiple times from multiple colleges. I have not been able to hold a job for longer than like a year and a half or so, and that was part time, uh, like few hours, minimum wage at a comic shop, and that wasn't to me even a job, because I would go and volunteer there just to like help reorganize the back issues, and just bag and board stuff, just to like chat and hang out with them, because it was one of the few places that I felt like I could fit in and not be judged, um and be able to feel comfortable manning the store, and being a good salesperson, because I wasn't even being a salesperson. I was just being a comics enthusiast. And so if people asked me for recommendations, I could be like, oh, like what kind? Give me a genre, give me a, whatever, and I'll see, I'll recommend what I've liked or what I think you might like, and that kind of stuff. And I freaking loved it. And, the hardest part was just realizing that I have a lot to learn when it comes to interpersonal stuff. Hey, Mike. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming by. Um, yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but like when I was 22 and I first met my best friend, and we dated for like a year or whatever, and that didn't work out for various reasons. But I was 22, and that was 2012, and that was the first time that somebody posited to me that I had autistic traits. Because I really struggle with understanding where other people are coming from, especially the majority, and like the neurotypical brain structure and culture and societal norms, and don't pick up on social cues and nonverbal communication, and am perceived as pedantic or condescending, demeaning, rude, callous, lacking in empathy, all of these kinds of things, which I actively strive to not be, present like that. But because I have a very formal and slightly unusual way of speaking, and then my body language and tone of voice and facial expression don't often match my words, people will be more influenced by what's going on here instead of just listening to my explicit like verbiage, which I am, very particularly honing to try to, you know, make to I can't even think today, to try to communicate as effectively as possible so there's minimal misunderstanding. And yet when you remove the human element from it, people end up like, I don't know, they think that I'm being all of these weird things, and I'm just like, look, if you could just take me at face value, literally, like, just listen to my words and forget this other shit that I don't have full control over it. I don't know what it does. I don't know what it's signifying, all of these things, which is why modeling was a big challenge for me. And I still am trying to, improve that skill and hone that craft, because it isn't like just step in front of a camera and ooh, you look pretty and stuff like that. It's like, no, really, it's learning angles, it's learning micro expressions, it's learning like if you just move your body in this little particular way, it looks totally different and communicates something vastly different. And whether or not I'm actually trying to channel some sort of emotion, just like altering little expressions, people perceive various emotions, and that's cool. It's unusual and very strange to me, and it's almost like a scientific experiment and like a learning exercise for me. Um, and it was funny because I was sending random pictures, like random selfies that I took with different expressions to a few of my friends, and I was like, all right, what does this expression mean? And then they would say this, and I'm like, huh. And then, what about this one? Something else. Huh. And like just things that I wouldn't at all guess, or I wouldn't say or assume or anything. I'm like, I don't know. They all look the same to me. So I've been, now that I'm in Washington and I have Medicaid, which fully covers all of my physical and psychological and psychiatric and all of that kind of stuff, needs. And I'm trying to go back to school, and students often have access to more resources than many others. Long, potential political rant there that I'm not going to go into. um, I now have a therapist, a psychiatrist, a general practitioner, a Dbt group that I go to, and a counselor who specializes in autism. And as I was saying, it was posited to me the first time in 2012 that I might be on the spectrum. And then my borderline and bipolar and all that kind of stuff got really severe. So it sort of just like became more important than even like exploring or trying to learn more about the autistic side, and how that impacts me. And then when I started working at Black Hat and I was functional enough to be able to, work at least a little bit like that, and then I started interacting with people, customer service, my employee, or not my employees, my coworkers, my boss, things like that. The autistic qualities kind of came a little bit to the forefront again, or more so. And that's when I started thinking about it again. And it took up until this year, in January, I think, to get my formal official autistic diagnosis. And that has been very helpful, to explain why I do a lot of the things I do, why I have some of the behaviors I have, why I talk a certain way and process things and interface and all these kinds of things in an unusual way, why I identify as Borg more than human, like AI or alien or something like that. It just kind of, and then looking back on my childhood and all of the weird shit that happened to me and the way that people treated me, and I didn't understand why, and why I felt like I was missing something and like didn't get the joke or whatever. It kind of just elucidated that and was like, oh, okay, well, that makes far more sense. The more I learn about autism and, the more I learn about the autistic brain and how it functions and how the end quote symptoms manifest, even though it's not like a disorder or an illness, it's just a different brain structure. Um, that was very, yeah, very illuminating and very helpful, actually. And to this day, there's such a wide misconception of what autism is and mental health and conditions in general. Bipolar is a bit more understood. Borderline, at least people have heard a bit more about personality disorders. But autism is one of those things where people are still saying it's a disorder and it needs to be cured, and people are doing really messed up stuff for children. Yeah, it's often hereditary. There's often a genetic component. And so there's this like stereotype as to what an autistic person is supposed to look like and how they're supposed to act and all this kind of stuff, and it manifests, the architecture, of the brain, even if it's similar in different people because it's this autistic architecture, because of the hormonal and biochemical differences in everybody, it's going to manifest slightly differently. The traits and characteristics are going to be slightly different, especially between female bodied and male bodied individuals, because we're socialized differently as children. And so autism is still highly underdiagnosed. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I don't I don't know what changed. I don't think anything changed. Can you hear me? Let me know. Hello, hello, hello. Type a yes if you can hear me. Type a no if you can't hear me. I can hear you. Okay, cool. Baron, I don't know what's going on then. Yeah, so shit. Anyway, yeah, the traits and characteristics manifest differently. And so, women are and girls are often underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed. A lot of the time they'll be diagnosed with bipolar or borderline or something like that instead of autism. And I just happen to have all three, which makes life extremely chaotic and difficult. And it makes me act a certain way that people will look at me or talk to me and be like, you don't seem autistic. You just seem like, you know, I don't know, whatever they think. And people will assume that I'm very capable and very high functioning and all of this stuff because I have a good command of language and because I'm self-aware and I'm articulate and all of these things. And it's like, yeah, but that's my special interest. That's my personal aptitude. I've always been inclined towards language and linguistics. I knew three languages as a baby. And when you know multiple languages when you're young, that opens a certain neural pathway and makes it easier for you to learn and become more adept when it comes to language. And so autism does not imply deficits in any capacity. It just means that our cues are different. We just perceive things differently. We just assimilate information differently, and whatever, this whole deficit of being able to pick up on social cues, I don't even think that's that important personally. If everybody just freaking said what they were thinking and feeling at all times, why would it matter? We wouldn't need nonverbal communication that much. There wouldn't be as much confusion because even neurotypical people struggle with understanding nonverbal communication between each other. And so it's frustrating when I'm told that I have some sort of deficit and I need to learn how to adjust and behave more like the majority, when I really think that the majority is insane and ridiculous. So it's just really frustrating, because you know I look at society and I see people like chickens with their heads cut off, and they're just running around willy nilly, not even considering how their actions and behaviors and like thoughts and words are impacting others, impacting society. They're not thinking about how what their job is in order to our societal obligation. And a lot, there's this whole nihilistic mood that's like, whatchamacallit, like, fuck society, I don't give a fuck, all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, you know what? Then we should kick you out of society and see how long you live in the wild amongst the animals and foraging for food. Like, you cannot live in a society and reap the privileges and benefits that you're being given without contributing back. That's not how it works. That's not how society or civilization works. We give up certain personal freedoms and liberties, like saying bullshit publicly and stuff like that, in order to help facilitate positive and progressive, productive behaviors and norms and mores for the society to develop in a positive, progressive, and productive way. Obviously, this is not happening right now, especially in America, which is why I find this whole society very backwards and very destructive and very detrimental. It doesn't seem like anybody cares about anyone else but themselves. And this is, inevitably, inherently destructive and tending towards chaos and entropy. And so when people want to know why shit is falling apart and everything sucks, it's like, well, maybe take a step back, look in the mirror, and think about what you're saying and doing on a daily basis. Are you being reactionary? If somebody does something that you consider offensive, or it's triggering to you on some capacity, because everybody has their own traumas and their own sensitive subjects, are you lashing out at them? Are you being no better than them by calling them names and by trying to get them as riled up as you are? Well, if you're doing that, maybe think about how that is contributing and perpetuating the shittiness of our society, and how that this behavior uh is giving an example. Essentially, it's showing an example for everyone else. We teach people how to treat us, right, and what to expect of us, and vice versa. Like, they do it to us. And so if we treat ourselves with respect, and if we treat others with respect, even if they don't deserve it, even if they're not going to give any in return, that's still going to more likely affect positive change on a long-term scale than just bitching at each other, and whoever is louder is going to win and adjust the policy and legislation in that moment, because this is all temporary and empires collapse. So what remains after all of these societies and civilizations destroying themselves and crumbling from within? Humans. We still exist. We're still going to be here and have to deal with the aftermath of all of this bullshit. So, you know what? Maybe we can preemptively avoid this by stopping focusing on all of this external bullshit that we have no control over and that is not helping anything. It's just high school politics, except for, on this grand scale that's starting to impact every single person that's trying to just exist in a way that's, safe, in a way that, they're getting protection from, things that they wouldn't if they were just living in the wild again, and we're getting all of these privileges and we're getting our basic needs met, most of us at least. And obviously that's what I believe, as apolitical as I am. If there's a government, the job of the government is to take care of the basic needs and try to help people, get to a point where they can also be thriving and flourishing and successful, but productive members of society who are helping to work together in order to build a better world, a better society. I don't know why I just got into this whole like tangent, but I think it has to do with the fact that now I'm saying that I'm in a better situation medically since I'm actually starting to get, you know, the help that I need and have needed for so long. Hi, Super Boyd. How are you? Thanks for coming by. Um, yeah, so these past months slash years have been very challenging for me. Just struggling with mental health and trying to figure out what it is that I should be doing, shouldn't be doing, trying to find the motivation and in- incentive to even care to get better and to work on myself. Um, Trying to, figure out what it is that will benefit me, what will be actually, beneficial for me specifically, since everybody is so different and everybody has their own, path and their own biochemistry and their own, everything like that. So it's not just like one size fits all, and we have to really learn about ourselves and be introspective and consider, and monitor these things, and try different things and not be afraid to fail because, the only real failure is never trying. And I was stuck in that place. I was afraid of trying anything because I was afraid of failing. And then I realized, well, crap, I have been failing for years because I haven't even bothered to try anything. And, and I just kept myself in this place of below complacency. I wasn't even complacent because I wasn't happy like to be there and just like coast because I felt like I was barely surviving. So, now I'm here in Washington. I've got the support of my family. I'm slowly making new friends. I'm, looking into social services and all these kinds of things, and basically just asking for help from anyone who is willing and able to give it to me, and humbling myself to say, truly I, am a disabled individual because my illnesses take such a toll on my day-to-day existence that, at almost 30, I have nothing to show. I have nothing to no progress, nothing, no schooling, no real job experience, like no long-term relationships, nothing. Um no, I'm getting better, like here, I made a salad for myself and some stuff, and so I am, it the past week has been terrible, and I did just eat a bunch of crap and went on this binge of like drinking and smoking cigarettes and all this kind of stuff and staying up way too late and just feeling like crap and losing days. And it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And then I think it was yesterday or today, and I was like, no, like I'm done. I don't want to feel like crap, and I don't want to lose any more days because there's a lot of important shit that I need to take care of, and I have a lot of appointments set up, and I have a lot um of things to do, adulting stuff that I've been avoiding and putting off. And the longer you avoid shit, the worse it gets, the more, difficult it is to finally do it. So I'm like, just suck it up and try to do one thing at a time and stop berating yourself if you're not like a superhero and can just like do everything magically. It's like, no, I am where I am, and people are going to perceive me how they're going to perceive me. But that's why I'm keen on making these videos and explaining, just because I look a certain way, just because I speak a certain way, just because I am unintentionally presenting a certain way, because I don't make any effort to present one way or another. I just am me. So, this is why I'm so vocal about mental illness and invisible illnesses, and showing how debilitating they can be, just like, having your legs amputated, or having cancer wherein you have to go to these treatments on a regular basis. I too have to be on medication. I too have to go to treatments on a regular basis every week, sometimes multiple times a week. And I have caseworkers and social workers and people I have to check in with. And I am, under the government's thumb right now, because I am asking them to support me, because I can't do this anymore. I can't do this on my own. And I understand this, and it sucks, and I wish that I were able to get to the point where I could, get back into my art and regularly produce stuff. And I don't feel comfortable asking people to subscribe to, like, my Patreon or whatever, to sub to me, if I'm not consistently giving something in exchange for that. And of course, one day I would love to be able to do that, and I like to create and to put my art out there and share it. It usually tends to have themes of mental illness or whatever, or things that are important to me. So it's not just like random stuff, and I'm starting to get back into writing, starting to get back into visual art, trying to start doing some photo shoots again. Cosplay is still on the back burner, and streaming and gaming and stuff still on the back burner, until I can figure out a rig that isn't going to crash all the time and just be crappy and stuff like that. So that's still in the back of my mind. But the thing is, I don't even have a place of my own right now either. I'm staying with my parents, so it's not even like I could game and stream regularly, because then I'd be talking and bothering them. And they're very particular and kind of like uptight and kind of OCD about the way they live and their schedule and all this kind of stuff. And it doesn't work for me. And so I applied for, disability, SSI, and I'm really hoping, that this works out, because if I can get disability income, then I can afford, my own place, and that would mean everything, because privacy is super important to me, and I can go a little bit, bonkers if I don't have what I feel is my own space and privacy. And I think that's part of like the autism and other things. But yeah, so yeah, things, on the one hand, I have some hope. This past week was like the first time things got kind of like super shitty since I moved here. But it, you know, I have to be okay to admit that, it's not going to be perfect. It's called a recovery, period. It's a journey for a reason. Um, and and yeah, there will be bumps in the road. There will be hitches. I'm not going to be able to just get better and not have any, like, whoops, I fell off the path again, and then just be like, fuck it, I'll never be okay. I tried so hard, and here I am, like, back in the same crappy place again. And it's like, no, no, don't let that kind of thinking, it's warped thinking. It's not accurate. It's not realistic. That's a cognitive fallacy. It's a logical fallacy. And you need to just be like, shut the fuck up. Like, that's not true, okay? You had a down moment, you made some mistakes, but we're human, and that's part of it. And at least I am putting my health in the forefront and am actively trying as hard as I feel that I can right now. So yeah, I'll make mistakes, but I can't beat myself up about it. That'll just make it worse. And so I'm trying to take everything one day at a time, one step at a time, and I'm trying really hard to hang in there and retain hope. Um, and I do have more hope than I did when I was in Utah. I felt like I was kind of just despondent and listless and wasting away, and didn't see the point of trying or anything like that. And now, I'm, even though I don't necessarily have a bunch of time to be putting into my creative endeavors, you know, I just wanted to let people know that kind of what's going on, what I actually am doing, why I have been MIA, and what my plan is in terms of getting back into my creative endeavors and my social presence a little bit, like social media presence a little bit more. It's a goal. It's a plan. It may take a while, to get back to where I, want to be, or just to get to where I want to be, period, because I don't feel like I've ever been where I want to be. Hi, press center. How are you doing? Thanks for stopping by. And then thank you, Mike. I am trying. Like, I realized in Utah when things got really bad, like, no, I really need to prioritize this, or I'm never going to get to where I want to be. And not even like time is running out, but it does feel that way. It feels like I only have, a little less than a year until I hit 30, and my goal is to be able to finish some stuff, to get to the point where I can finally, have the ability to, implement a regular schedule, a routine, the ability to just say, shut up, we're getting up and we're doing shit in the morning as much as I don't want to, like that's, it's a huge thing for me. Or, and having the executive functioning to be like, all right, you've got an appointment at 11, leave at like 10:30, no later, or whatever, because you could get lost, because you will have some time to settle in and do some stuff before the appointment. It'll make you feel less stressed, etc. Grab a whip. Yeah, that's never helped. Neither negative nor positive reinforcement has ever helped. It's a fully internal thing. And really it seems to come, this motivation only comes when I hit rock bottom again, and then remembering, well, shit, that sucked. I don't want to be there anymore. I don't want to be there again. So just keep on keeping on, just keep trying. Keep failing. Don't worry about the whole failing thing. I always try to remember what Alfred said in shit, was it Batman Begins? I don't remember, but he said, why is it that we fall? Bruce, like why do we fall? And he, Bruce just kind of looks at him and he's like, so that we may learn to get back up again. And that's super important to me, and that really it's a lot to me, because it helps me remember that falling is part of the path. It's about the journey, right? Not so much the end goal. It's about every single day, and learning how to tolerate and undergo the difficulties, and more so than just that, but taking a lesson from it, and being introspective and being like, all right, what is it that I need to really focus on? What is it that is important? And like to constantly be realigning myself and my vision and my internal mental state, because it gets so crazy and so wonky, and I have struggled so long and so hard, just trying to keep it on a normal base level of not constantly having violent intrusive thoughts, or just like super negative horrible thoughts where I'm just like, I don't want to deal with it. I just want to go to bed and sleep, and then I have nightmares and night terrors, and then I don't get rested, and so that doesn't help, and so then I'm just like, what's the freaking point? But then I remember, and I remind myself what the point is and what my goals are. And so a lot of this is just, perhaps you can say in some ways it's like an exploratory or self-exploratory phase of really trying to go deep within myself and see and recognize and figure out what it is that will be truly helpful, that will, put me on the path of getting to where I want to go. And really I'm just humbling myself and really reaching out more for support and help than I really have before, because in that self-destructive place you don't necessarily want help because you're self-destructive. You isolate to keep yourself in that place because your self-destruction's like, no, if you reach out to people they're going to try to help you get out of this place, and you don't want to. You want to stay here and pity yourself in self-loathing and, wallowing in your misery. And of course, again, this is all a cognitive fallacy, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's a downward spiral. And so a lot of, my therapy is trying to help me learn to identify when I start thinking that way, and trying to go like, nope, we're not going to go there, and try to, like, the self-talk be like, that's not true. Why are you saying that? Is this just a self-destructive tendency? Where is this coming from? What is it that triggered this? And then trying to, like, backtrack and talk myself through what is it that will actually help you, and that kind of stuff. Hi, Simon. I am doing a DBT group right now, dialectical behavioral therapy, and that meets about once a week, and that's specifically for people who have emotional dysregulation issues. It was originally developed for people with borderline personality disorder, which is what I have, but it helps, for so many other conditions as well, bipolar, anger management, like self-esteem and issues, like so many things. I think that DBT should be taught to children, really, because it helps you to identify what's going on inside of yourself, how to verbalize that in a tactful way, how to validate other people who are trying to do the same thing, and how to be effective in, working together on healing and growing. Um, I do some CBT, some cognitive behavioral therapy, with a one-on-one therapist, and also working on PTSD and some other issues. And then I am now starting to see a person who also kind of has a specialization in autism to help me just kind of understand how to human better, because I struggle with just understanding, like, the majority of people. Um, I was just reading about. I even talked to a psychologist, and I was saying that coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. I think that's serendipitous. I think that that's a sign, and you should listen to that. And if you ever have any questions about borderline or DBT, like, feel free to hit me up and message me. I am very vocal about talking about my stuff, and I have psychoeducated myself since I was like 12 about various types of abnormal psychology, because I was just desperate to figure out what the fuck was going on with me and the world, and why things were so crazy, and why I was so miserable, and why there was so much suffering. So I am pretty knowledgeable. I've taken some formal psychology courses as well, and my goal in school is to eventually go into cognitive neuroscience, neuropsychology, with an emphasis in neurolinguistics. And I would like to be on the research end to develop and study new. Just came to see my friends and she never calls her. Hey, you know what? You can freaking instigate too. I am, again, bad at being the one who contacts people first, but if you message me, I will always respond. Unless I'm being super fucking avoidant. But for the most part, I am okay-ish now. I'm out of that sort of really bad avoidant place. And if, it's all about if I have the energy or the spoons to respond, but if I care about you, and I do, obviously, Varen, I will make sure that you deleted the Facebook app. Well, there's still Instagram, there's still Twitter, I think Discord, we still might be connected. I'm going to try to be a little bit more involved with that again. So there's ways, and we can be in touch again. I'll try harder, I promise. What kind of education do you have to pursue to get into the field? Oof, this is a longer conversation. Is it medicine, psychology, or something else? Um, I know this drives people nuts, but I genuinely have to go to the bathroom, and I'll try to make it super quick, and then I will answer your questions, Simon. I'm so sorry, but I have IBS, which is another one of my fun, disorders. So if I have to go, I've got to go. So I'll be back. Entertain everyone, Baron. Okay, juggling is out. um, yeah. So nice to see you too, Mike. If you're heading out, thanks for stopping by. Um, so yeah, there tend to be a lot of comorbidities when it comes to, or comorbid conditions, when it comes to having various sorts of mental illnesses or different neurological brain structures and things like that, because everything's connected. I have a whole rant about how um, the fields of psychiatry, psychology, neuroscience, they should not be separated. And anyone who is a specialist in one of those fields really needs to have a solid understanding of the others, because the brain, there's a second brain in our stomach, in the gastrointestinal, system, and like our central nervous system. It's very closely linked to what's going on with our brain chemistry. Um, IBS and gastrointestinal issues are also very commonly comorbid with people who are on the autism spectrum. Um, I'm not sure about the comorbidities with borderline or anything else, but at the same time, any condition which does cause a certain amount of anxiety or tension or things like that can also disrupt normal gastrointestinal functioning, because it places severe stress and stuff like that on the whole system. Um, so that's very common. And again, if you want more information or want to talk to me about that anytime, I don't know if I have my social media links in my profile or in my Twitch profile. But I'll check and make sure everything's there. I'm not great at responding to messages on Twitch, but I just re-downloaded the app, so hopefully it'll signify me more and things like that. And then maybe I can enable like email notifications again or something. I'll figure out a way to be more available, to chat about these things. And in terms of going, yeah, I don't even think I have commands or anything. Yeah, I'm like, again, I have to like restart from scratch essentially, and so I'm not, and I'm on my phone, so I'm not there yet, Baron. We'll get back there if I start streaming again more regularly. But currently, I'm just kind of chatting and getting people up to speed with what's going on. But Simon, in terms of the career path, yeah. So in terms of the career path that I'm pursuing, um, basically it's a blend of cognitive science, which studies psychology, linguistics, and AI kind of. And it's all about the study of cognition and what is sentience and like what is it that makes us be able to have these cognitive capacities and stuff. There tends to be kind of more of a technological element there, especially with the AI and studying there. So that's one of the branches. And then psychology, I want to specifically go into biopsych or neuropsych. And so, what that means is that I would not just be studying psychology, but I would be studying the physical brain structure and what areas of the brain are, illuminated, highlighted, what the basic brain structure looks like, and what different parts of the brain are larger, smaller, more developed, underdeveloped, utilized more, and then specifically hooking up the brain so that we can see the imaging of what's going on in the brain live as we implement various types of clinical therapy techniques such as DBT, mindfulness meditation, Zen meditation, mantra meditation, all of these different things, and see what is effective for individuals, because it's going to be different for everybody, so it's custom tailored, but also overall to study what techniques seem to be the most effective just statistically for the majority of people, and how to kind of tweak and redevelop clinical therapy techniques and things like that. And I already have a thesis about mantra meditation being more effective than Zen meditation or just like plain mindfulness, because it adds not only like something to focus on, like single pointedness, but also mantra specifically means mind control, and it adds an additional level of not only neurolinguistic programming and words and like the meaning of words have shown to alter our brain waves, our cognitive patterns and everything. Just that's why affirmations work and brainwashing. um I work at your local 7-Eleven. Well, I am speaking English, and if you don't understand, I definitely advise, school and or reading, because this is just how I talk. um, and that, not to be like condescending or anything, but seriously, like it's just indicative of an educational level. And I'm very much in favor of trying to get people to an educational level wherein we can have conversations like this. Yeah, that's the problem, and that's why you can't understand me, because you have that mentality. So that's on you, and I can't change you, and I can't force you to do anything, but I highly recommend you, look into, maybe working on your verbal aptitude skills, and comprehension. So yeah, mantra specifically is dealing with the sound vibration, and we've also seen that different sounds can disrupt the cognitive patterns and processes as well. And so the combination of the sound of a mantra, since it is specifically crafted in a way, the structure itself, plus the meaning of the words, and the single mindedness, the single point focus of chanting a mantra. So, let's say, for example, you can say, okay, now just try to relax, try to focus on, the sensations of your body, try to focus on your breath, try to just let all of the, emotions and thoughts kind of just like wash over you. Yeah, sure, that can help, but that's really freaking difficult. And it's not going to be effective like right from the get-go. Whereas in We'll have to have another word game night, Jack's always fun to linguistic jousting match. Yes, of course, definitely. Um, yeah, so with the mantra though, um, so for example, a very commonly known, or one of the most commonly known or familiarized mantras in the West and all over the world is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And yes, it's been used in a way that people kind of make fun of it, but at the same time, it's funny because they're still reaping the benefit of chanting that mantra. And if you specifically hear the structure of the words placed. For example, it goes Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this specific structure itself is also lending to an additional level of cognitive, control and disruption. So my thesis is I would like to be able to be in a research setting wherein I take in different clients and patients and hook them up and have them chant this mantra and then show what parts of the brain are being activated. Because when you chant this mantra, not only are you, focusing on one thing, which is just what meditation is, but then when you say it, it's also, you hear it and that's disrupting things because of the sound. I do not speak Hindi, actually. This is a Sanskrit mantra. I'm learning Bengali and I would love to learn Hindi, but I'm only at the basic, very, very basic level and only know certain words. Um, but, concepts and stuff like that. The field sounds very focused on the brain and how it's affected by different types of therapies. Does it interest you more than psychiatry, and why? Again, psychiatry, I believe you cannot, it's not a separate field either. Because if you separate psychology or psychiatry from neuroscience and biopsych, then it's guesswork. It's saying, well, this kind of sounds like this, so I'm just going to guess that maybe this might help, and so try this, and it's like, yeah, if you guess the wrong thing, that can screw somebody up even more so than they were before, and even in certain cases cause people to become suicidal when you were trying to help them, get better. So if you do not know what the actual inherent brain structure of an individual looks like, and you don't know what parts of the brain have been impacted by trauma or some sort of biochemical, thing, um, not disorder, but like abnormality or something, you literally cannot in any definitive manner be able to be like, yes, this person has this or this, and so this drug will work. Because firstly, even identifying, a diagnosis, every single person's biochemistry is different. So then on top of that, you need to be able to have, okay, testing their biochemistry. And then from that, we know the chemistry of these psychopharmaceuticals. And then, going that way, there's more to go on. It's less guesswork. And yeah, there's still new fields, but that's no excuse for not using the technology and the technical capacity that we have currently, especially in the West, when we're leaders when it comes to technological research and advancements. And it's absolutely, bullshit. And the way that they, approach these things in medical school is still very, very backwards. And so that's why I am personally so passionate about this, because I have been one of those guinea pigs, and I have been misdiagnosed, and I have been given the wrong meds, which have made things worse. And similarly to my friends, it's happened to people I know and don't know it's happened. And it to me, it's not like a simple fix, but there's a very obvious course of action that would be the most beneficial, effective, progressive, and productive. Like, it's a very clear path. And yeah, there's tons of red tape and roadblocks and trying to find funding, because everybody who has the money is wanting to, is in the pharmaceutical industry or in, whatever, trying to keep people in bad places, because then they're easier to control. That's why quarrel is being fed. A lot of, you know, the news, a lot of politics, a lot of this is just it's divisive, you know, tactics in order to keep us separated and divided, because that's, you know, divide and conquer. You know, if you bring dissent, if you separate everybody individual, yeah, it's easier to wipe them out. It's easier to, you know, dig your claws into them and, you know, manipulate and marionette them like puppets. And so that's why they, you know, my guru told me, or well, he didn't tell me, but he was giving some class, and he said, you know, one stick, easier to break. Many sticks, you know, it's hard to break. And that's the whole thing, unity versus divisiveness. We are more similar than we are different, but we are being lied to constantly. We are being force-fed, brainwashed, and you know, told a bunch of lies to keep us subordinate. So you know, again, it's why I'm very passionate about it. It's why I would like to go into this. I just, you know, I'm almost 30, and it makes me somewhat discouraged sometimes. It hurts inside. Hey, what's up? I feel that. Thanks for coming by. Um, yeah, research oriented work. Are you also interested in working directly with patients in a therapy setting? So, when it comes to research, what I would like to do is have, you know, patients that would come in one at a time that I'd be working with, and, you know, I would be seeing them on a regular basis and, you know, see what is going on and the effectiveness of the mantra meditation and, you know, various therapeutic techniques. So on the one hand, it is a sort of clinical setting wherein therapy is taking place, but it's a different form of therapy. It wouldn't be talk therapy. It would be specifically based around a form of meditation as the therapy. And so it wouldn't be the same as like me sitting in a room and just like talking to somebody and having like that kind of regular client or patient interaction. It would be primarily, no, I'm in a research setting and I'm having volunteers or, you know, whatever, who want to come and participate and be a guinea pig for this particular form of research to see if it does help them. And, you know, if we had the funding, maybe be able to pay them for this. But if, you know, in general, people pay for therapy. So if they could, you know, at least have some form of therapy for free, that alone could really incentivize people, even if it's, you know, experimental and stuff like that. And I personally have considered volunteering for various types of experimental research in the psychology and psychiatry fields. So that would be my goal, my end goal. Hope to hear more from you. I have to go, but take care and see and chat to you soon. Thank you so much for stopping by, Mike. It's nice to see you too. Much love. I'll try to be on a little bit more regularly as well. Um, yeah. So, yeah, so that's what I'm doing. Currently, I'm trying to get my health to the point where I am able to function well enough to maintain a daily lifestyle that's not destructive, that's healthy, that's positive, that's really helping me to, um, you know, handle day to day life to the point where I am able to attend school, have a life outside of school, you know, go to my temple, engage in my, you know, daily spiritual practices, as well as continue to work on my, my art, my creative endeavors, and then whatever, you know, learning just for fun, because I like doing that, researching stuff just for fun, having some level of social life, which is not as important to me as these other pursuits, but I understand that social interaction is important and it's a skill that if you don't use it, you lose it. And all these kinds of things. But but yeah, so that's basically what I'm doing right now. And so I may be a little bit inconsistent again when it comes to streaming or posting or any of these things. And I tend to be more active on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram when it comes to posting, you know, updates and stuff like that. I'm considering trying to reactivate or kind of revive my YouTube and my blog. But again, it's just a lot of things that it's a lot of things that I want to work on. You know, I've got so many projects, I've got so many goals, so many aspirations, and a lot of them require a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. And so I'm just trying not to get overwhelmed and focus on one thing at a time. And the primary, most important thing currently is my health. And once I feel that I have gotten to the point where I'm stable and regular enough to really work on challenging myself in terms of discipline and willpower and things like that in a way that I haven't been able to do before, that's where I feel like I am able to kind of step up the game and become more serious in my academic pursuits, because my nerdy or creative pursuits, I've always, you know, at least been sort of able to dabble and kind of mess around with, even in a dark, depressive place or whatever. No, I'm not Buddhist. I am, uh, the easiest way to say is like sort of Hindu, but not really at all, because there's a lot of fundamental differences between the Vedanta sadhana, the practices of what I do and I follow, and, you know, stock traditional cultural Hinduism. But you know, Krishna is often associated with Hinduism, and Krishna is what I and those in my particular line and tradition, Krishna is considered the original personality of Godhead. And from this original source, this original personality, all of the different expansions of God and avatars and forms and formless forms and etc., so on and so forth, manifest from. And Krishna is kind of, you know, this idea of God is basically the sum totality of existence, which exists by itself and for itself. So it has no creator. It always was, and it has no purpose for existing other than it wills it. And it is the source of consciousness, the source of everything really, and every living entity, you could say soul, is a unit of consciousness that is finite within the infinite consciousness. And so if we are all individual souls, you can think of God as the super soul. All of our souls comprise, you know, Krishna's soul, kind of. It's a lot more complex and deep than that, but that's kind of just like the 1 minute answer. And I've been meaning to do like a video that kind of explains a little bit more about my beliefs and my practices and stuff, because I've never really gone that much into it, because I avoid talking about, end quote, religion and politics, even though to me this is not really a religion. It's more just like a world paradigm and way of perceiving and interacting with, you know, reality. Um, but politics, I have issues with politics because I just think it's high school drama on a larger scale. um, it's why I think, I don't know if I answered your meditation question, but meditation is originally defined as in Sanskrit there are a few words for meditation, like dhyan or japa or things like this, and they basically there's multiple types of meditation, but the core purpose is to kind of go inside of yourself and not just calm the mind and the body, but it's an internal practice wherein you're attempting to adjust your vision, your paradigm, and you're trying to realign yourself with something that is more in line with truth and reality instead of our own subjective paradigm, which is what is causing all of these things like mental illness and crazy thoughts and you know, these reactionary emotional tendencies and stuff. So meditation can be very helpful on multiple levels, both psychologically and physiologically. And this is starting to be researched a lot more in the West. And you know, only finally are they starting to be like, oh yeah, yoga, that's actually really good for you, and you know, vegetarian diet is very healthy, and meditation is something everyone should do for like at least 5 minutes a day. Like it's like finally starting to be accepted, when it was like, yeah, since the beginning of time in India, like in that whole region, like they knew that. And so I kind of give more credence and stock in those ancient traditions, because it's like they're just sitting here being like, yeah, duh, that's why we've been around as long as we have, and why we've survived like this, and y'all Western cultures are like baby cultures and really have no idea. And for so long the West rejected Eastern thought, saying that anyone who wasn't from the West was barbaric and primitive, when the East has always seen the West as primitive and barbaric, because they're baby cultures compared to how ancient these civilizations are, and how mixed and confused and egoistic and individualistic things got in the West, when really that's contrary to building a productive, building and maintaining a productive and healthy civilization that's going to last. How are you functioning in day-to-day life? Have you been able to work? No, I've been unemployed for a while, and I have applied for Social Security disability, which means that I don't foresee myself being able to work again for a while. And they would provide a monthly stipend, which could help me get a place to live and just like help take care of basic living daily stuff. I get food stamps, so I get a little bit of money, which can help me just buy groceries and stuff. And then I get a little bit of money for general cash assistance, so that can be for like gas or toiletries or things like that. And then my medical, is all covered with Medicaid. So that's wonderful, and that's keeping me alive. So functioning day-to-day life, it's on a case-by-case basis. How I'm doing one day in the morning could drastically change, that evening. And then I could be fine for like a week, doing like decently well, and then something triggers me, and then all of a sudden I have a week like I just had, and everything falls to shit, and it's horrible again. So it's very dependent still. I'm very unstable and irregular still. So I'm still having to work with a psychiatrist pretty closely, and other health professionals, in order to just get to a equilibrium, to a homeostasis kind of. Um, and I'm at least hopeful, though, because these providers seem to be a lot more caring and knowledgeable than the ones that I've seen in the past. So that's at least, a silver lining. And again, I have a little bit more hope that I might be able to, just get to a point where I'm slightly more functional. That would be everything for me. Don't get me started on those high dropouts that supposedly represent the people, but have never worked a real job in their life. That's a different subject. Yeah, I have bipolar 2, borderline personality disorder, and am on the autism spectrum, but I don't consider my autism a disorder or illness. I just consider it that I have a different brain structure, and it just makes it slightly difficult for me to process and interface with humans on a daily basis. And usually, if I'm not socializing, the autism seems to not really be a problem. But then the depression and the manic episodes, and all of that stuff is still a problem. And if I'm by myself for too long, I sink into a really bad place. So it's kind of this like constant balance of trying to be around people enough that I can be a little bit more stable, and functional, but then not be around people so much that the autism is just like overwhelmed and like drained, and just like, I need alone time, please leave me alone. Weed does not help me, unfortunately. I've tried so many variations of THC, CBD. I've dabbed, I've smoked, I've vaped, I've tried edibles, gummies. Um, like I've tried everything, and yeah, none of it really helps me. I had like a couple of joints the other night, just because I was still feeling a little bit just like blah and needed something to just calm me down and make me feel a little bit happier and better. And so those seem to be like marginally effective in that moment, but they're definitely not a long-term solution. It's like one of the least destructive things I can do if shit gets really bad, you know? It's like, all right, you can get high and maybe have like a couple drinks and then you really got to cut yourself off. Um Dabbing. Oh, that's so funny. Is your therapy cost covered? Luckily, I'm in Europe, so we have the privilege of free healthcare. Whereabouts in Europe are you? Because I know that that really depends on the country that you're in. Um, uh, my therapy and all of my medical expenses are fully covered by uh, by the state. So each state has different policies, and that's why I had to move from the state of Utah because they had absolutely no free healthcare for anybody unless you had like a child and were on federal aid, which already gives you income. So that was pretty messed up, and I just kind of was left to rot for a while. And so I decided to move to Washington because they provide, you know, healthcare and things like that for people who are disabled, even if they don't have federal disability, and who, you know, are low income and stuff like that. I've heard good things about Sweden and how they, you know, care for their people a lot more than America seems to. But there are states in America that do try very hard, you know, and they can only do as much as the federal, you know, government allows them to, and they will have, you know, limited funding, so they'll have limited providers, and there's like really long waiting lists. And so I'm fortunate that I was able to get some. um hey, what is this stream about? And don't forget, I keep on rocking in the free world. I have no idea what that means. This stream is just a catch-up stream today, because I've not been here in a while, and so I'm just kind of letting people know why I've been absent and what I've been up to and what my plans are for the future. So I'm just, you know, just it's a social stream today, just checking in. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like the majority of it is I'm just doing my best, you know? I'm just doing my best to not let my brain get the best of me, you know, my body get the best of me when it just tries to self-destruct and imprison me again in that really horrible dark place of you're a piece of shit, you're worthless, you don't even deserve to get better, you don't deserve help, you should just kill yourself and like rid yourself from the stain of, you know, humanity. Like you know, you're just, you know, a burden. And you know, I know these thoughts are irrational, you know, I know they're not true, but that doesn't mean that when they're happening, I, you know, it feels real, and it feels like it's the truth. And that's what warped thinking is. That's what a mini psychotic break is. It means that your thinking is so warped that you have lost touch with reality to a certain extent, and you no longer can discern what is actually true. Um, so, was it complicated to get the paperwork done so you could be eligible? Yep, they make it as fucking hard for you as possible, to deter people. And that's another thing that just sucks about America, because it's like, you know, and right now I'm in the process of applying for federal help, which is even way harder, and they make it so difficult, make you jump through so many hoops. Like, they make you do all this testing. It can last like months to probably like years in order for them to even come to a conclusion, and then usually they'll deny you and you have to appeal it. So like, I've tried applying in the past and just couldn't do it on my own, because I was so unwell. And so I just kept getting like denials. But this time I'm having people help me. I'm having, you know, caseworkers, I'm having social workers, I'm having health professionals and stuff vouch for me and be like, no, she needs this. She needs some support. She can't function on her own, and I don't want to just end up in a homeless shelter. That's just going to make me worse. You know what I mean? So it just, yeah, anyway. Okay, Baron and local and whatever, we don't talk politics in this stream, okay? So whatever, you guys can talk like privately, but this is a very much no politics stream. And anything that I bring up that has to do with politics, it's largely to do with how it's impacting me personally, and how it usually has to do with healthcare and government aid and things like that. But I'm not making any commentary any which way. I'm not supporting any particular individuals, any parties, or anything like that. I don't talk legislation or laws, and I ask very much that anyone who comes to my stream respects that and also does the same. It just does not ever seem like it's a productive conversation. So, yeah, shit's intense. But yeah, they make it really difficult, and I'm just fortunate that Washington cares as much as it does about its people, and that it's trying to be there for people. And so far, all of the providers that I've met have been awesome and really care. Yeah, frankly, I feel like I need an exorcist too sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, it literally feels like there's demons living inside of me, and a lot of my art represents that, especially a lot of my no, you're fine, Baron, I'm just reiterating. It's been a while, so you might have forgotten. um yeah, so yeah, a lot of my art represents how my mental illness feels like there are demons that are whispering to me and that are possessing me sometimes and making me do things that I don't want to do. And I can see myself doing these things, and I'm like, don't do that. You don't want to do that. Please, please don't do this. And it's still, I do it. And then I have to deal with the aftermath and the fallout afterwards. So I understand and I feel that kind of belief and that sort of inclination, but I could go through all the exorcisms, in the world, and I know that it wouldn't change my basic biochemistry. We are how we are structured, and there is the ability to change and work on, our neurology and our biochemistry and things like that, but that comes from intensive forms of therapy. And that's particularly why I want to go into this specific field of research, because I believe that this is one of the most effective ways to be able to manipulate the neuroplasticity of the brain, which means reworking the actual fundamental structure of the brain. And that's possible up until your 70s or plus, and up until things start degrading to the point where it's hard to really manipulate. But even at that point, with significant treatment and health practices, some of that degradation can be delayed as well, and even slightly reversed in certain cases. So there is a whole world that is only slightly starting to be explored when it comes to Western scientific research methods and studies and cases and all that kind of stuff. And in many places around the world, this is already standard practice. They already understand the benefits of holistic medication and medical treatment, but they just don't have the technology to be able to show that. They just have centuries and centuries of, end quote, anecdotal evidence, which is not good enough for the Westerners. So that's why I would like to be able to do it in a Western scientific setting, to be able to say, here we have studies, we have evidence, we have proof and support in this research, and I can cite and explain exactly why XYZ is the case. And so that's my main motivation there. DM on IG, how is your relationship? Cool, that's awesome. I'll message you when I'm on Instagram again. My relationship with my parents is interesting. um, I'm living with my parents again because I can't afford to not, and I have my own room. But they're kind of a little controlling. They're kind of a little bit egotistical in the sense that they both were educators their whole lives, and educators often fall into the trap of thinking that they know everything because they're used to being the smartest person in the room. Um, no worries, Baron. And so it's frustrating when they don't actually understand psychology, when they don't actually understand psychiatry, when they don't understand how things work in this whole department, and when they have never personally experienced what it's like to go through this, what it's like to live and just be me on a daily basis. Because my mom will just be like, but why can't you just try harder, or why can't you just blah blah. We all like go through lows, we all have difficulties dealing with shit. And I'm like, yeah, and you didn't get fucked up as a child, like, from your dad being a really fucking creepy person who liked to psychologically torment us until the point where I was terrified and calling my aunt and like sobbing in the closet being like, I think my dad's gonna kill my mom, should I call the cops, what do I do? And just like, all this kind of stuff. She didn't grow up in the same setting, and she doesn't have the same biochemical conditions that I have. I believe she's also on the spectrum, undiagnosed, but she doesn't have bipolar. That's a genetic thing, and I think I might have inherited that from either her mother or my dad or that side. But not everybody who has that gene like develops that, and sometimes it gets skipped generationally. And so there's just a lot of things that I struggle with and that I go through that she just couldn't possibly understand. And that's how it is again with mental illness overall. If you don't personally experience it and you can't physically see that someone is struggling as much as they are, people have a tendency to dismiss it. And they call it invisible illness. It's not real. It's all in your head. You should be able to just get over it. And it's like, yeah, don't you think that if I could just get over it, I would? You think I love like the feeling of my life passing by and just like sobbing and not being able to get out of bed because I want to die so much, like, yeah, sure, I really want to be in that place. Like, no, that's not how it works, okay? And at this point, I finally had to have the courage to stand up to people who say that kind of shit and say, no matter what you think, no matter what you feel, and no matter what you believe, I am an individual who has disabilities. And because it impacts my life so severely, I am applying for federal disability because I can't work. And the reason I can't work, I can explain to you, and you can believe me or not, but that doesn't mean anything because I'm still me and I still have to live my life. And I'm going to do what I believe is best for me and what will get me, to just a baseline functional healthy place, and you may not get that, but again, that's not my problem. Your problem is working on yourself, and my problem is working on myself. And we all have different paths, and we all have different needs. So, agree to disagree, but I'm going to keep on doing me. And you can disagree, but you need to take your negativity and your shit elsewhere because I'm not going to listen to that, if you're just going to continue to tell me that I should just be different than how I am. Because I've been told that my whole life, and guess what? It makes it worse. You start feeling defective, it makes you more depressed. And then it makes it even harder to want to try to get better and to find the help that you need. So at that point, I'm like, all right, if you're gonna continue to be that way, bye. Like I'm done with this. You can take your beliefs elsewhere, and I'm not gonna try to change your opinion. That's not my job. But I implore you to do additional research on this subject so that you stop saying hurtful and detrimental things and make it worse for others. Borderline personality disorders are trauma. They're purely psychological and developmental. So personality disorders can develop when you have a significant trauma in childhood. Bipolar disorder is a genetic thing. It's a biochemical thing, which tends to be more hereditary and can sometimes even be handled, like the symptoms can be mitigated and people can be decently functional with medication alone, because sometimes it's just that chemical imbalance. But borderline medications don't work for, because it's, your brain wasn't able to cope with the trauma that you went through as a kid. And so you have a lot of warped, infrastructure going on in there. And the only thing that can help with that is severe, often lifelong therapy, just working to restructure your brain, rewire, the basic way that you think. And it's painful and it's hard. And, it's very much unpleasant. And most people don't want to do it, because facing your traumas, that's one of the hardest things in life. You'll get triggered again, you'll relive that experience, you'll break down again. So people naturally want to avoid that. But if you don't, work on your shit, you're never going to get better, and your life it's always going to be chaos. There's always going to be these extreme ups and downs, which are going to impact not only you, but your relationships with other people, your ability to work, your ability to go to school, your ability to just live. And so it's something that, if you really want to get well, you have to take very, very seriously, and you need to address it. And that's one of those things that, after having a few really severe episodes where I did shit that I never thought I was going to do, and that I never thought, I could possibly fathom, doing, I realized, wow, like, I really need to take this seriously, because I never ever want to go to that place again. I never ever want to do those things again. And I'm serious about that. What diagnoses did you get first? By borderline or bipolar? How long did it take for the second diagnosis? What symptoms were telling? Um, I when I was 22, and um, so basically I was struggling like up and down my whole life. I like to say that when I hit puberty around like 12, 13, I realized that I was depressed. And things got really bad. And that's when I was like, cutting and self harming and suicidal and things like that. And that lasted for a very long period of my life, like a decade or so. Um, and and then it wasn't until I was 22 when I had a very severe breakdown mentally. And that's, I had been exploring, autism at that time. But then when my depression and stuff like that got so severe, that just kind of wasn't important as much anymore. And so I had to go home. Again, it wasn't the first time I had to go home, but that's another story. But this time was so severe that I told my mother, I know that, seeing a psychiatrist is expensive, and, we've always been poor, but I genuinely don't think I'm going to be okay if I don't see somebody who actually knows, what's going on and can give me a diagnosis, because this is something really bad and I don't know what it is. And so the first psychiatrist I saw gave me the diagnosis of bipolar 2 disorder when I was 23. And he put me on a few medications that were both horrible for me. And I didn't like him at all. And that was a whole thing. And then I think it was like the next year or so that I saw a different psychiatrist, and she added the diagnosis of borderline. And at first I was like, no, I don't think I'm borderline. But then, like, I started thinking more about it and was like, maybe that's true, actually. And then I went later on and saw this other professional, and he might have even just been like a GP. I don't even know if he was like a mental health specialist, but borderline's a severe diagnosis. And so he was like, any personality disorder is. So he was like, so why do you think, do you think that the borderline helps? No, no, they weren't a placebo. They ended up giving me very bad physiological side effects. So I started having hand tremors. I started having like restless leg. It was really bad, and it didn't do anything for my actual mental problems. Um, Welcome back. And so when I received the borderline diagnosis, and I went to see this other professional, he was like, "So do you feel that it fits?" And I was like, yeah. And so then he's like, "Let me ask you this. If you, let me imagine a baby is left by themselves, in a room, and they're crying and everyone's ignoring them and no one's attending to them." And I just started bawling, like just from him saying that alone. And he was like, "Yep, that's borderline." And I was like, "Yep." um, yeah, and you can only give placebos in controlled settings for research purposes. Aw, yeah, that'd be great to see TJ, but I don't know how much longer I will be on because there is some stuff that I do need to do today, and it's getting quite late. But uh, I was about to cry. Yeah, and that's a significant thing because borderline often comes, I mean, many personality disorders, but specifically borderline comes from either, abuse and or neglect in childhood. And, my dad not only psychologically abused us, but also neglected me. And I was like a non-person. And he, would like prop my baby bottle in my mouth while I was in the crib and then go and leave me alone for hours so he could paint or do whatever the fuck he want, and I wouldn't cry, so it made me so that I couldn't cry, and then I would feed myself. And like that's just not fucking right, like that, like kids, babies, the first 4 years of your life are very formative. And if you don't have too much, attention, or if you don't have enough attention, or if you have too much attention, it can go either way. That can, significantly impair your development. And so that's what's looked at largely when it comes to the diagnosis of personality disorders. And then this new psychiatrist gave me the additional diagnosis of borderline at the age of 24, and she put me on different medications, and they worked for a few years. And then this past year, like December, January, it had been about like 5 or so years that I was on this particular antidepressant, and it just stopped working. And I started having really bad kind of like borderline episodes again. And I was like, I don't know, something might have changed in my biochemistry, like maybe my frontal lobe finally developed, whatever it is. And so that's when things got so bad again that I was like, I don't think I'm okay by myself. I think I need to move home with my parents again. And I had also just received the formal diagnosis of autism. So that took like 7 years from like first thinking about being on the spectrum to actually receiving that diagnosis. And I had to go to a specialist who specialized in autism because everyone else was like, "No, you don't seem autistic." And it's like, well, you obviously don't know anything about autism then, because it isn't an illness. It isn't a disorder. It's like not even a condition. It's just a way that your brain is wired. And that just is going to inherently impact the way that you function as a person. So yeah, it was just, it was pretty funny that it took that long. But, and I don't mean, not funny, haha. Yeah, so now, I went to the psychiatrist and she was like, bipolar, like antidepressants don't really work for bipolar, and antidepressants aren't meant for long-term usage. They're for short-term usage. They usually crap out around 5 to 7 years, which is about how long I'd been on them. And she was like, it's largely more with the mood stabilizers and other things. And so we've been, weaning me off of the antidepressant and introduced another medication, but it's not been helping my mood stabilization when it comes to my ups and downs. Like I've been feeling really hypomanic, which on the one hand can be good because I'm getting shit done, but then the manic is not good and gets to an extreme place of self-destruction. And then there's been some mixed episode in there wherein there's that depression, which just makes me feel like fuck everything. I don't care. I don't want to do anything. I just want to sleep forever. So but at the same time, I'm kind of crashing and trying to recuperate from this past week where I just did not take care of myself and did a lot of really destructive stuff. I'm sorry to hear that. It's Simon. It's unfortunately more common than we'd like to think that that fucked up shit happens to kids, often by their parents, and the parents sometimes don't even know that what they're doing is harming their kid as much as it is. And that's, another reason I am very gung ho about my opinions on parenting and who should be allowed to be a parent and who shouldn't. Even though I personally will never have children, and I'm very adamant about that. But I have a lot to say on the subject. Because I got so fucked up. So I know how important and serious it is. And I'm gonna have some salad. But yeah, I think I'm going to probably log off in about 5 to 10 minutes, so I can finish doing some of the other stuff that I gotta do. But it's been some great conversation. Thank you so much for listening and chatting with me, and being open-minded and non-judgmental when it comes to hearing about these things. Mild salsa lied to me. Is it like really spicy? Yeah, so I personally find that these subjects, mental illness and so on, are very, very important and still stigmatized and not talked about nearly as much as they should be. So I tried to explain to my followers, especially online on Twitter, Instagram. I post a lot about mental illness. Facebook, I'll share things that I feel are very important for people to be aware of, because so many people don't understand why there are so many homeless people, why are there so many, end quote, crazy people, why there are so many dysfunctional people. People will just dismiss people as lazy or just not trying hard enough, or, just living off of the government because, they don't want to get a job. It's like, sure, there are always outliers and extreme cases, but for the most part, our society is fucked up and we're breeding fucked up people. We're not teaching people how to treat children, what to teach children. So naturally we're growing up without proper coping mechanisms, without understanding what is going on, without knowing how to deal with it. Like, no shit, our society is falling apart and terrible. So to me, these are some of the most important subjects, and I will never be quiet, and I will always be very, very vocal about these things. And anyone who wants to listen and contribute to this conversation is more than welcome to. I'm always open to hearing other perspectives and learning about other people's experiences, because the more information I can get, the more educated I am about these subjects, and the more that I can share, from a wider knowledge base, and speak from a wider knowledge base. And I try to be as informed as possible on subjects before giving my opinion or saying anything. Nose is flooding worse than a lot of rivers. Haha. Gringo! Can't handle spicy? It's great. I love spicy. But yeah. Well, tell TJ I love him, and I'll try to come on and come on again soon. Yeah, try to be a little bit more active. And crap, I always forget her name. The other one, the one who's there all the time, his mod. What is her name again? She's always really sweet. Tirania, right? My love to her as well. I have trouble keeping up with everybody, because I'm already having issues. But yeah. Anyway, so I'm a bit tuckered out. Tiring kind of talking tires me, which is also why streaming has is not something I do very often, or making videos. But again, much love to everybody, and I thank you very much. And actually, I think I'm just gonna head out now. And if you want to hit me up anywhere on any social media sites, I will do my best to respond as soon as possible. So have a good day, night, whatever it is for everybody. Much love. Bye bye.